Somalia, 14 months ago. The scope's crosshairs trembled, just slightly, just enough. Specialist Kira Vaughn pressed her cheek harder against the rifle stock, willing her body to stillness. 893 yards downrange, through the green-tinted circle of her optic, a man held a child at gunpoint. The little girl was maybe 7 years old, clutching a stuffed fox like it might save her life. It wouldn't. The terrorist's finger rested on the trigger of an AK-47 pressed against the child's temple. Harper Marlowe, daughter of a U.S. Embassy contractor, 7.5 years old, brown hair and pigtails, wearing a Disney princess shirt now stained with dust and tears. Kira's finger found the trigger. 2 pounds of pressure. That's all it would take. 2 pounds and Harper Marlowe goes home to her parents. 2 pounds and the mission succeeds. 2 pounds and Kira proves she belongs here. The only woman in an 8-man team. The sniper they said shouldn't have passed selection. The radio crackled in her ear. Team leader Hayes, urgent and tight. Overwatch, you have the shot. Take it, now. Kira's breathing was perfect. 4 seconds in through the nose, 6 seconds out through the mouth. Heart rate controlled. Wind calculated. Range confirmed. Every mechanical element of the shot was flawless. Her finger wouldn't move. Overwatch, I say again, take the shot. The terrorist shifted. Harper's eyes, wide with terror, seemed to look directly at Kira through 900 yards of African heat shimmer. A child's eyes, trusting someone, anyone, to save her. Kira's entire body locked, finger frozen on the trigger, muscles rigid, brain screaming at her hand to pull. Just pull, do your job, save the girl. But the signal wouldn't travel from brain to finger. The synapse wouldn't fire. Overwatch, take the goddamn shot. The world slowed. Kira watched, paralyzed, as the terrorist began to turn, began to scan the perimeter, began to realize something was wrong. In 3 seconds, he would pull that trigger. In 3 seconds, Harper Marlowe would die, and it would be Kira's fault. All units, Overwatch is no-go. I repeat, Overwatch is no-go. Initiating close quarters contingency. The voice was calm, deadly calm. A voice Kira had heard only once before, in the pre-mission briefing. Call sign, Stone. Tier 1 consultant. The ghost operator they'd brought in to plan the rescue route, but wasn't supposed to be on the objective. What happened next, Kira could only see in fragments through her scope. A shadow moving where no shadow should be. The terrorist's head snapping right. Confusion. Then the man was falling. Harper tumbling free, and someone was scooping up the child and running. Gunfire erupted. The careful, silent plan collapsed into chaos. 2 SEALs took rounds, not fatal, but close. The extraction became a firefight. What should have been surgical became desperate. And all of it, every bit of blood and chaos and near disaster, traced back to one moment. Kira Vaughn's finger, frozen on a trigger she couldn't pull. The image freeze-framed on Harper's terrified face. Then the screen went black. A title appeared in stark white letters, 14 months later. Pinehurst, North Carolina, present day. The coffee cup trembled in Kira's hand. Small movements, micro tremors that never quite stopped. She set the cup down on the diner counter before anyone could notice, pressing her palms flat against the cool formica. Carlo's Diner looked exactly like 1,000 other small-town diners scattered across America. Red vinyl booths patched with duct tape, black and white checkered floor tiles, some cracked with age. A menu board behind the counter advertising breakfast specials that hadn't changed price in 5 years. The smell of coffee and bacon grease hung in the air like a permanent resident. It was Saturday morning, 8:07. The early rush was settling in. Farmers in worn Carhartt jackets, a few college kids recovering from Friday night, an elderly couple sharing a waffle. Normal people living normal lives. People who slept through the night without jerking awake to the sound of gunfire that wasn't there. Kira sat alone at the counter, facing the door. always facing the door. Her back to a wall felt like an exposed flank. Exits needed to be visible. Approaches needed to be monitored. 3 months of medical leave hadn't changed the habits. Probably never would. The door swung open. The little bell above it chimed. Kira's shoulders tensed. Her hand moved instinctively toward her waistband where a sidearm would be. Wasn't. She was a civilian now. Mostly. Another week and it would be official. Just a customer. Middle-aged woman with grocery bags. Harmless. Kira forced her breathing to slow. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. The technique Marcus Stone had used in Somalia. The one that had saved Harper when Kira couldn't. She'd looked him up afterward, found nothing. Classified operator. Ghost. The kind of soldier whose missions never made the news because officially, they never happened. And now he was gone. Retired. Disappeared into whatever quiet life men like that disappeared into. While Kira sat in diners trying not to flinch when someone dropped a plate. The waitress, an older woman named Doreen, refilled Kira's coffee without asking. She'd been doing it for 3 months. Every Saturday. Kira came here because it was public and safe and required her to leave the apartment. Exposure therapy, the VA counselor called it. Kira called it hell. "You okay, honey?" Doreen's voice was gentle. Too gentle. The voice people used when they knew you were broken. "Fine," Kira said. Her voice came out rougher than intended. "Thanks." Doreen moved away, probably relieved. Nobody knew what to say to the veteran who couldn't hack it. The female soldier who'd washed out. Kira had heard the whispers around base. Heard the things people said when they thought she couldn't hear. Should have known better than to put a woman in that position. Too emotional. Can't handle the pressure. It's biology, not sexism, just facts. The coffee was too hot. Kira drank it anyway, welcoming the burn. Physical pain was easy. Physical pain made sense. The bell chimed again. This time Kira's entire body went rigid. 3 men walked in. Army. She recognized the bearing before she saw the unit shirts. Staff Sergeant Cole Brennan led the pack. 6'2", shoulders like a linebacker, swagger like he owned every room he entered. Behind him came his 2 shadows, specialists whose names Kira didn't care to remember, the kind of soldiers who found their courage in numbers. Brennan's eyes swept the diner, locked on Kira. A smile spread across his face. Not friendly, predatory. Kira looked down at her coffee, tried to become invisible, tried to remember the breathing technique. 4 in, 6 out, 4 in, 6 out. The 3 men took a booth, loud, laughing, performing for an audience. Kira could feel them looking at her, could feel the weight of their attention like a physical thing pressing against her spine. "Well, well," Brennan's voice carried across the diner, meant to carry. "Look who's here, Pinehurst's favorite war hero." The other customers glanced up, looked away quickly. Nobody wanted to be involved in whatever was about to happen. Kira kept her eyes on her coffee. The cup was shaking again. She pressed it harder against the counter. Footsteps approached, heavy boots on linoleum. Brennan slid onto the stool next to her, too close, invading her space with practiced aggression. "Heard you're getting discharged, Vaughn." His voice was conversational, almost friendly, which made it worse. "Medical separation, PTSD, that about right?" Kira didn't respond, couldn't. Her throat had closed up. The diner was suddenly too small, the walls too close, exit blocked by Brennan's body. Her training screamed at her to move, to create distance, to neutralize the threat. But her body wouldn't obey, just like her finger wouldn't pull the trigger. "Must be hard," Brennan continued. He picked up her coffee cup, examined it, set it down, marking territory. "Washing out, knowing everyone was right about you." One of his specialists laughed from the booth. On cue, like they'd rehearsed this. "I mean, we all heard the story. The lady sniper who froze up in Mogadishu. Kid almost died because you couldn't pull the trigger." Brennan leaned closer. Kira could smell his cologne, aggressive and cheap. That true, Vaughn? You choke when it mattered? The diner had gone quiet. Everyone watching now, waiting to see what the broken soldier would do. The tremor in Kira's hands was visible now. She pulled them into her lap, hidden from view. Her heart hammered against her ribs, breath coming too fast. She was having a panic attack. Here, now, in front of everyone. Maybe women just aren't cut out for combat. Brennan's voice was philosophical now, reasonable, like he was stating a simple fact. No shame in it. Biology's biology. Probably better you're getting out before someone else gets hurt because of you. Kira wanted to stand, wanted to leave, wanted to do anything except sit there absorbing his words like body blows. But her legs wouldn't work. Fight or flight, and she could do neither. Frozen. Again. Brennan's hand reached out, grabbed her wrist. Not hard, just firm enough to stop her from pulling away. "Hey," he said, and now there was an edge in his voice. "I'm talking to you, specialist. Least you could do is look at me." Across the diner, in a corner booth facing the door, a man set down his coffee cup. The movement was slow, deliberate, no sound at all when the ceramic touched the table. His name was Marcus Stone, though most people in Pinehurst just called him Marcus. Mid-30s, shoulder-length dark hair pulled back in a loose tie, worn field jacket with the patches removed, leaving ghost outlines where insignia used to be. Calloused hands that suggested construction work. The kind of quiet that made people assume he was shy or running from something. Nobody in town knew what he was running from. Nobody asked. Sitting across from him was a 7-year-old girl with bright, observant eyes. Emma Stone. She had her father's intensity, compressed into a small body that still believed the world made sense. In her lap sat a gray stuffed rabbit with one ear shorter than the other. Sergeant, she called it, her constant companion. Emma had been drawing on her placemat with a stubby pencil, working through a maze. Now she'd stopped. She was watching the counter, watching the 3 men surrounding the woman who was shaking, watching the woman's face, pale and terrified. "Daddy," Emma whispered. Marcus didn't look at his daughter. His eyes were on the counter, taking in positions, distances, angles of approach. The same tactical assessment he'd done 10,000 times in places most Americans couldn't pronounce. The assessment was automatic, muscle memory from a life he'd left behind. "Not our business, sweetheart," he said quietly, but Emma was still watching, still seeing what everyone else in the diner was seeing and choosing to ignore. A woman in trouble, a woman scared, a woman who needed help and wasn't getting it. "Daddy, please." Emma's voice was small. "Help her." Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd spent 5 years building a wall between who he'd been and who he was trying to become. 5 years creating a life where his daughter was the mission and everything else was noise. 5 years proving that a man could choose family over duty and not break under the weight of that choice. "Emma." "But she's scared." Emma's voice cracked. "Like I was, after Mommy." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Sarah had died while Marcus was deployed. Emma had stopped speaking for 6 months after. And now she was using that voice to ask him to do something he'd sworn he wouldn't do. Get involved. Be that person again. The warrior who solved problems with violence. At the counter, Brennan's grip on Kira's wrist had tightened. "Maybe you should stick to desk work," he was saying. "You know, where you can't get anyone killed." Kira's breathing was ragged now, full panic attack. Eyes unfocused, body locked in fight or flight with nowhere to go. Emma looked up at her father. "Daddy, please help her." The words hung in the air between them. A 7-year-old's faith that her father could fix anything, could stop anything, could make the world safe for people who needed safety. Marcus looked at his daughter, saw the absolute certainty in her eyes, the belief that heroes existed and her daddy was one of them. He closed his eyes, took a breath, Let 5 years of careful distance collapse in a single moment of decision. Then he stood. The walk from the booth to the counter was maybe 15 feet. Marcus covered it in a way that made people notice without understanding why. Not rushed, not aggressive, just purposeful. His body automatically chose the most efficient path, weaving between tables with an economy of motion that suggested training most people never received. His hands hung loose at his sides, non-threatening, open palms visible, but positioned in a way that could transition to action in a fraction of a second. When he stopped, he was exactly 3 feet from Brennan, close enough to be heard clearly, far enough to give everyone space. "Let her go." Marcus's voice was quiet, level, carrying no threat and no emotion, just a simple statement of fact. Brennan turned, looked at this man who just walked up and inserted himself into military business, took in the long hair, the civilian jacket, the construction worker appearance, saw no threat, just some local townie who didn't know better. "This doesn't concern you, friend." Brennan's voice carried the confidence of a man who'd been in fights and won them, who had rank and authority and training. "Move along." "Let her go," Marcus repeated. Same tone, same volume, like he was commenting on the weather. Brennan's smile faded. His 2 specialists had stood from the booth, moving to flank positions, creating a 3-on-1 advantage, standard pack behavior. "You got a problem, old man?" Brennan released Kira's wrist and turned fully to face Marcus, squared his shoulders, made himself bigger, dominance display. Marcus didn't react, didn't square up, didn't make himself bigger, just stood there with that same calm expression, like he was waiting for a bus. "Just one," Marcus said quietly. "Move." The word hung in the air, not a request, not a threat, an instruction, simple and clear. Brennan made his choice. He shoved Marcus with both hands, a solid 2-handed push to the chest, meant to send him stumbling backward and establish the hierarchy. It was the kind of move that had worked 100 times before on people who didn't know what to do when aggression met them head-on. Marcus moved backward exactly 6 inches. His feet adjusted automatically, weight redistributing, balance perfect. He didn't raise his hands, didn't flinch, didn't react at all except to absorb the force and resettle into a stance that looked casual but was anything but. He just stood there, looking at Brennan with flat, calm eyes that held no anger and no fear. Kira saw it first. She'd reviewed enough tactical footage, studied enough combat techniques. The way Marcus's weight had shifted, the way his hands hung loose but ready, the way he was suddenly taking up more space than he had a moment before without actually moving. Her eyes widened. She knew what she was looking at, had seen it once before, in Somalia, when a ghost operator had appeared from nowhere and done the impossible. "Wait," she started to say, but it was too late. Brennan saw that Marcus hadn't fallen back, hadn't been intimidated, hadn't done anything except stand there looking at him with those unsettling calm eyes. The staff sergeant felt his face flush with anger and embarrassment. His crew was watching. The whole diner was watching. This nobody had just made him look weak. So Brennan made the choice that would change everything. He cocked his right arm back, wound up for a haymaker punch, and swung at Marcus's face with every bit of force and momentum he could generate. What happened next took exactly 10 seconds. Brennan's punch came fast, committed, a haymaker right hook with his full body weight behind it, the kind of punch that ended bar fights and training yard disputes. Marcus wasn't there when the fist arrived. He'd slipped inside the arc of the swing, moving with an economy of motion that looked effortless. Suddenly, he was too close for the punch to land with any force. His left hand came up and redirected Brennan's arm, using the momentum against itself. His right elbow drove into Brennan's solar plexus with surgical precision. The air left Brennan's lungs in a rush. His eyes went wide with shock. Before he could process what had happened, Marcus had swept his front leg and used Brennan's own forward momentum to drive him face first into the floor. The impact was heavy and final. Brennan hit the linoleum hard, his hands slapping the ground too late to break his fall. He lay there gasping for air that wouldn't come, his diaphragm spasming from the strike. 3 seconds had elapsed. The first specialist reacted on instinct, charging from Marcus's left with his arms outstretched for a tackle. He was younger and faster than Brennan, had wrestled in high school, though he knew what he was doing. Marcus pivoted to face him, caught his leading arm at the wrist and elbow simultaneously, applied pressure in a direction that joints weren't meant to bend. The specialist's charge turned into a scream as the joint lock took hold. Marcus controlled the descent, guiding him down and into the edge of the counter with a kidney shot that was measured and controlled enough to incapacitate, but not to cause permanent damage. The specialist crumpled to the floor beside Brennan, holding his arm and making sounds that were somewhere between sobbing and cursing. 6 seconds had elapsed. The second specialist had hesitated, watching his two friends go down in the space of a heartbeat. Then training overcame shock, and he committed, going low for a double-leg takedown, a wrestler's move. Hard to defend if done right. Marcus sprawled instantly, a defensive reflex that stopped the takedown cold. He controlled the specialist's head with both hands and drove one knee into his chest. Not his face, not trying to break ribs, but applying enough force to knock the wind out and shut down the fight. The specialist dropped to his knees, then to his side, curled around his chest and gasping. 9 seconds had elapsed. Marcus stepped back from the 3 men on the floor. His breathing was unchanged. No sweat on his face. His expression was as calm as it had been when he first stood up from the booth. The entire diner stared in shocked silence. 10 seconds had elapsed. 3 trained soldiers lay on the floor in various states of pain and humiliation. Marcus stood in the middle of them, his faded field jacket hanging loose, his long hair still tied back, looking like exactly what he had looked like when he walked in. A quiet construction worker who kept to himself. Except now everyone in Carlo's diner knew that wasn't the truth. They didn't know what the truth was, but they knew it wasn't that. The movement had been clean, surgical, no wasted motion, no rage, no loss of control. It was the kind of fighting that didn't come from a gym membership or weekend classes at the community center. It came from somewhere else, from places and experiences that most people only saw in movies. Doreen, the waitress, stood in the kitchen doorway with one hand over her mouth. The trucker at the corner table had half risen from his seat, his coffee forgotten. The elderly couple sat frozen with forks halfway to their mouths. Kira Vaughn was pressed back against the counter, her eyes wide, staring at Marcus like she was trying to solve an equation that didn't add up. She had seen enough in her 8 months on active duty to recognize what she'd just witnessed. That wasn't self-defense training from a weekend seminar. That wasn't even regular military combatives. The way he had moved, the precision, the control, the absolute confidence in every motion. She had only seen that kind of movement once before. During a joint training exercise, when some quiet men in unmarked uniforms had run a demonstration that made the regular infantry look like children playing soldier. Marcus turned away from the 3 men on the floor and looked at Kira. "You okay?" he asked. His voice was still quiet and level, like nothing unusual had happened. Kira opened her mouth. No sound came out at first. When she finally managed to speak, her voice was barely a whisper. "Who are you?" Marcus's expression didn't change. "Nobody," he said. "You should file a report." Then he turned and walked back to his booth, where Emma sat watching with wide eyes and Sergeant the Rabbit clutched in her small hands. Brennan was trying to get up, pushing himself onto his hands and knees, coughing and gasping. The first specialist was still holding his arm, rocking slightly. The second specialist had managed to sit up, but was hunched over, arms wrapped around his ribs. The fight had gone out of all of them. Whatever had just happened, whatever they had just experienced, had stripped away the bravado and the pack mentality and left them facing a simple truth. They had picked a fight with someone so far beyond their capability that it was embarrassing. Marcus slid into the booth across from Emma and picked up his coffee cup. It was still warm. He took a sip and set it down, then looked at his daughter. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked. Emma nodded slowly, still processing what she'd just seen. "I knew you would help, Daddy," she said. Her voice carried absolute faith, like there had never been any doubt in her mind. Marcus reached across and adjusted her placemat, moving her orange juice closer. "Finish your drawing," he said gently. The bell above the door chimed. Deputy Constance Hewlett walked in, hand on her duty belt, eyes scanning the scene with a quick assessment of someone who had been doing this job for 20 years. She saw the 3 soldiers on the floor in various states of distress, saw the civilians watching with expressions of shock, saw Marcus Stone sitting calmly in his booth, helping his daughter with her maze. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she pieced together what must have happened. Kira intercepted her before she could speak, moving quickly away from the counter. "Deputy Hewlett," she said, her words coming fast. "Those men assaulted me. They grabbed me, wouldn't let me leave." She pointed at Marcus. "He defended me. I want to press charges against them." Her voice was shaking, but firm. The voice of someone who had been pushed too far and was done staying quiet. The trucker stood up from his corner table. "I saw the whole thing," he said. His voice carried the weight of someone who had decided that staying silent wasn't an option anymore. "They cornered her, grabbed her wrist, wouldn't let her go. He asked them to stop. They shoved him first." The elderly couple nodded in agreement. "That's exactly what happened," the woman said. "Those soldiers started it." Her husband added, "All he did was defend that young lady." Hewlett looked around the diner, saw the agreement on every face, then walked over to where Brennan was finally getting to his feet. "You active duty soldier?" she asked. Brennan nodded, still trying to catch his breath. "Staff Sergeant, ma'am, Fort Baxter." Hewlett's expression hardened. "Then you should know better than to assault a civilian and a fellow service member. You're lucky I'm not arresting you right now. Get out of my town, all of you." Brennan looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to say something about how they had been jumped, about how this wasn't fair, about how a civilian had just taken down 3 trained soldiers, and that couldn't be right. But the words died in his throat. He saw the truth written on every face in the diner. He had started it. Everyone had seen. There was no way to spin this that didn't make him look like exactly what he was. A bully who had picked on the wrong person. He and his 2 specialists limped toward the door. The bell chimed as they left. The sound seemed louder than usual in the silence. Hewlett approached Marcus's booth. Her expression was thoughtful. "Mr. Stone," she said, "you need medical attention?" Marcus looked up from watching Emma eat her pancakes. "No, ma'am," he said. "That was impressive," Hewlett said, watching him carefully. "Just protecting someone who needed help," Marcus replied. His tone was matter-of-fact, offering no additional information. Hewlett nodded slowly. "I may need a statement from you." "I'll be around," Marcus said. Hewlett gave him one more long look, the kind of look that said she was going to be thinking about this for a while. Then she turned and headed for the door. Kira was still standing at the counter, her phone in her hand, staring at the screen with an expression of dawning realization. She had been filming when the harassment had started to escalate. She had pulled out her phone and started recording the way she had been doing for months. Every time Brennan and his crew came after her, building evidence, documenting the pattern, she had the whole thing on video. The harassment, the grab, Marcus's intervention, all of it. She played it back, watching the screen with wide eyes. The video showed everything. The way Marcus had moved, the precision of every strike, the complete control. She watched it 3 times, trying to process what she was seeing. Then she opened her contacts and scrolled down. Her thumb hovered over a name. Captain Garrett Wells, Navy liaison. She had met him once during a joint training briefing. A quiet man with sharp eyes who had given her his card and told her to call if she ever needed anything. At the time, she had thought it was just military courtesy. Now she wondered. She attached the video and typed a message. Need identification on civilian defender. Techniques match Tier 1. Urgent. She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then looked across the diner at Marcus, who was cutting Emma's pancakes into smaller pieces. He looked so ordinary, sitting there, so completely normal that it was almost possible to believe the last 10 minutes hadn't happened. Almost. Marcus could feel eyes on him, but he ignored them. He focused on Emma, on making sure she was okay, on maintaining the Saturday morning routine that had been their anchor for 3 years. Doreen approached the table cautiously, coffee pot in hand. "Can I warm that up for you?" she asked. Her voice was gentle, respectful in a way it hadn't been before. Marcus nodded and she poured, her hand only shaking slightly. "That was a brave thing you did," she said quietly. Marcus looked up at her. "Just doing what's right," he said. Doreen nodded, set the coffee pot down and pulled a $20 bill from her apron pocket. "Breakfast is on me today," she said. Marcus started to protest, but she held up her hand. "I insist. You just—" She paused, searching for words. "You just reminded everyone in here what courage looks like." Marcus accepted the gesture with a nod, then returned his attention to Emma. She had finished her pancakes and was now drawing again on the placemat. But the drawing had changed. Before, it had been flowers and sunshine. Now she was drawing a figure, tall and strong, standing between other smaller figures and something dark on the other side of the page. Marcus watched her work, saw his daughter process what she had witnessed in the only way a 7-year-old knew how. The diner slowly returned to its normal rhythm. People finishing their meals, conversations resuming in hushed tones. But everything had changed in a fundamental way. The man in the corner booth wasn't just Marcus anymore. He was something else, something undefined. And everyone who had been there would remember this morning for the rest of their lives. They would tell the story at dinner parties and family gatherings. The time they saw a single dad take down 3 soldiers in 10 seconds. The details would get embellished over time, the way stories always do. But the core truth would remain. Something extraordinary had happened in an ordinary place. When Marcus finally stood to leave, pulling out his wallet to leave a tip despite Doreen's insistence that breakfast was free, every person in the diner watched. He helped Emma with her jacket, took her hand, walked to the door. As he reached for the handle, Kira called out, "Sir, wait." Marcus turned, his expression neutral. She approached quickly, pulling something from her pocket. It was her unit patch, the one sewn onto her uniform from the Somalia deployment. She held it out to him. "In case you ever need anything," she said, "from me or anyone who served." Her voice carried weight, a promise of debt and gratitude. Marcus looked at the patch for a long moment, then accepted it with a nod. "You're going to be okay, Specialist," he said. Kira's eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. "Because of you," she said. Marcus didn't respond to that. He just turned and walked out with Emma. The bell chimed behind them. Through the window, Kira watched his faded blue pickup truck pull out of the parking lot and disappear down Main Street. Then her phone buzzed in her hand. The message was from Captain Wells. "Video received. Identification confirmed. Admiral Blake has been notified." Kira read it 3 times, her heart pounding. Admiral. She had expected maybe some interest from base security, maybe an inquiry. But an admiral didn't get involved in random diner incidents. An admiral got involved when something much bigger was in play. She looked down at her phone and whispered to the empty air, "Who are you?" 24 hours later. Marcus Stone's house sat 3 miles outside Pinehurst proper, down a gravel road that most people never noticed. 3 acres of pine forest. A modest, single-story ranch that had needed work when he bought it 5 years ago, and still needed work now. The kind of place where a man could raise a daughter in peace, and nobody asked questions about where he'd been or what he'd done. The sun hadn't cleared the tree line yet. 5:30 in the morning. Marcus was already on his second cup of coffee, sitting at the kitchen table reviewing construction estimates for a deck job in town. Emma was still asleep, her door cracked open the way she liked it. Sergeant the Rabbit tucked under her arm. This was the life he'd built. Quiet, predictable, safe. Then he heard the engines. Multiple engines, heavy vehicles, moving in formation down his gravel drive. Marcus's body tensed automatically, years of training making his senses sharpen. He set down the coffee cup with deliberate care and walked to the front window. 3 black SUVs were turning onto his property, kicking up dust from the gravel. They moved with practiced precision, not aggressive, but not social either. This was official business. Marcus walked to the front door and stepped out onto the porch, left the door open behind him so he could hear if Emma woke up. The morning air was cool and still. Birds were starting to sing in the trees. It was the kind of morning that should have been peaceful. The SUVs came to a stop in a semicircle facing the house. Doors opened in sequence. 2 military police officers stepped out first. Their presence was authoritative, but not threatening. Watching, assessing. From the second vehicle came a Navy captain in service dress blues. His uniform was crisp and formal despite the early hour. He positioned himself beside the lead SUV and waited. Then from the third vehicle, the rear door opened. The man who stepped out made everyone else look like they were playing dress-up. Rear Admiral Nathan Blake was in his late 50s, with silver hair and a bearing that spoke of decades of command. 4 stars on his shoulder boards caught the early morning light. He wore his uniform with the ease of someone who had been wearing it so long it was practically a second skin. He walked toward the porch with measured steps, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes taking in every detail of the property. The house, the workshop, the man standing on the porch watching him approach. When Blake reached the bottom of the porch steps, he stopped, looked up at Marcus. The 2 men studied each other for a long moment. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition and respect and the weight of shared understanding. "Master Chief Petty Officer Marcus Stone," Blake said. His voice was quiet but carried an authority that had nothing to do with volume. Or should I say, former Master Chief. Marcus's expression didn't change. "I go by Marcus now, sir," he said. Blake nodded slowly, looking at the long hair, the civilian clothes, the house. "Nice life you've built here," he said. "Did I break a law, Admiral?" Marcus asked. Blake shook his head. "No, Stone. You defended a service member from assault. Technically, you're a civilian hero." There was something in the way Blake said it that made it clear this wasn't the real reason he was here. The Admiral's eyes moved to the window where Emma's face had appeared, peering out at the vehicles and the men in uniform. "That's her, isn't it?" Blake said. "Emma." Marcus's entire body tensed, every protective instinct flooding through him. "Sir, with respect," but Blake held up a hand. "I'm not here to cause problems," he said. "I'm here because yesterday you revealed yourself." Blake pulled a tablet from inside his jacket and turned it on. He tapped the screen a few times, then turned it to face Marcus. The security footage from Carlo's diner played on the screen. Multiple angles, showing the entire confrontation from beginning to end. Blake let it play for a few seconds, then paused it at the moment when Marcus had slipped inside Brennan's punch. "A 27-year-old Army specialist filed a report," Blake said. "Unknown civilian intervened when she was being harassed. Said he moved like someone who'd done this in the dark." He scrolled to another video. This one was from Kira's phone, showing the same events from a different angle. "Took me about 30 seconds to confirm it was you," Blake said. He played the footage in slow motion, frame by frame. Marcus watched himself move with precision that was unmistakable to anyone who knew what they were looking at. "Textbook redirection," Blake said quietly. "Joint manipulation. Controlled force escalation. You didn't break a single bone, Stone. You could have, but you didn't." Marcus said nothing. He watched the footage play out, seeing himself through someone else's eyes, seeing the truth written in every movement. Blake turned off the tablet and looked at him. The specialist, Kira Vaughn, has been filing harassment complaints for 3 months, he said. Chain of command buried every single one. She was 1 day away from going AWOL just to escape it. Those men, Staff Sergeant Brennan and his crew, they're being court-martialed, dishonorable discharge likely, all because you stood up when no one else would. The sun was fully up now, light streaming across the property. Inside the house, Marcus could hear Emma moving around, probably wondering why there were military vehicles in the driveway. Blake heard it too. She's a good kid, sir, Marcus said quietly. She deserves better. She does, Blake agreed. And she got it. Because of you. The Admiral sat down on the porch steps uninvited. The gesture made the moment less formal, more personal. You left because of her, he said, looking toward the window. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. I left because I wanted to be a father more than I wanted to be a weapon, he said. Blake nodded slowly. I read your file. I know why you left. Marcus's hands clenched at his sides. Blake let the words settle, then continued. Master Chief Petty Officer Marcus Stone, Navy SEAL, 3 Silver Stars, 2 Bronze Stars with Valor, Navy Cross recipient, member of SEAL Team 6 for 4 years, 17 confirmed direct action missions. The recitation of his service record sounded strange in the quiet morning air, like it belonged to someone else, someone Marcus used to be. You were declared retired for medical reasons 5 years ago, Blake said. Same month you decided that raising your daughter was more important than anything the military could ask of you. Blake pulled a folder from his jacket, classified markings visible on the cover. I didn't come here just to thank you, Stone, he said. I came because the Navy needs you. No, sir. Marcus's response was immediate, firm and absolute. You haven't heard. Respectfully, sir, no, Marcus cut him off. I did my time. I buried friends. I lost my wife. I'm not losing my daughter. Blake pulled a photograph from the folder, held it up. A family photo, professional quality. Father, mother, and a young girl with brown hair and pigtails, smiling at the camera like they had their whole lives ahead of them. David Marlowe, Blake said, U.S. Embassy contractor, his wife Jennifer, their daughter Harper. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Blake pulled out another photo. This one was a still frame from a video. Grainy, poor lighting. Harper Marlowe, 9 years old now, sitting on a concrete floor, hands bound, tears streaming down her face. A man in a balaclava holding an AK-47 stood behind her. Kidnapped in Mogadishu 2 days ago, Blake said. Same al-Shabaab cell as before. Retaliation for the first rescue 14 months ago. Marcus stared at the photo, at Harper's terrified face. The same little girl he'd seen through Kira Vaughn's scope 14 months ago when the specialist had frozen. When Marcus had been forced to improvise a close-quarters rescue because the sniper couldn't pull the trigger. You have 100 guys who can do this, Marcus said. His voice was tight. We have guys who can try, Blake replied. We need someone who will succeed. That's not fair, Marcus said. No, Blake agreed. It's not, but it's true. The screen door opened. Emma stepped out onto the porch in her pajamas, holding Sergeant the Rabbit against her chest, her bare feet on the wooden threshold, her eyes wide as she looked at the vehicles, the uniformed men, the Admiral standing on her porch. Daddy? She said, small and uncertain. Marcus moved immediately to her side, placing himself between her and the others in a gesture so automatic he didn't even think about it. Emma looked up at Admiral Blake with the fearless curiosity that only children possess. Are you here because my daddy helped that lady? She asked. Blake knelt down slowly, bringing himself to her eye level. The kind of respect that made it clear he understood He was in the presence of someone important. "I am," he said gently. "Your daddy did something very brave yesterday." Emma nodded seriously. "I know," she said. "He always helps people." Blake looked up at Marcus. Something passed between them, an understanding that went deeper than words. "She's right," Blake said, standing and straightening his uniform. He pulled a card from his pocket and held it out to Marcus. "You have 72 hours to decide," he said. "After that, we move forward without you." He paused, then added quietly, "Stone, whatever you decide, thank you for yesterday." That specialist, Kira Vaughn, she has a younger sister. Because of you, she'll get to see her again. The Admiral turned and walked back to the vehicles, his officers falling in behind him. Engines started. The convoy began to turn around in Marcus's driveway. Emma took Marcus's hand, her small fingers wrapping around two of his larger ones. "Daddy," she said, "are you going away?" Marcus knelt down to face her, his hands on her shoulders. "I don't know yet, sweetheart," he said honestly. Emma was quiet for a moment, thinking with the seriousness that sometimes caught him off guard. "Is it to help people?" she asked. "Like you helped the lady?" "That's the job," Marcus said. Emma looked at Sergeant the Rabbit, then at her father. "Then you should go," she said. Marcus felt something break open in his chest. "You want me to leave?" he asked. Emma shook her head quickly. "No," she said, "but you taught me that sometimes we have to do hard things to help people." She hugged him tight, her face pressed against his shoulder. "I'll be scared," she said, her voice muffled, "but I'll be proud." Marcus held her close. This small person who had just taught him something profound about courage and sacrifice. He'd been trying to protect her from the world, but maybe she was the one teaching him how to live in it. They stood on the porch as the SUVs disappeared down the gravel road, the dust settling slowly, the sound of engines fading into the distance. Emma pulled back and looked at him. "If you go," she asked, "will you come back?" "Always," Marcus said. "I promise." Emma studied his face, looking for the truth, then nodded. "Okay," she said, "you always keep promises." They went inside. Marcus made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, Emma's favorite. They ate in comfortable silence. The classified folder sat on the kitchen counter, unopened. The photograph of Harper Marlowe's terrified face hidden inside. Marcus didn't need to open it to know what was inside. A family in danger. A mission that would require everything he had spent 5 years trying to leave behind. A choice between the life he had built and the skills he still possessed. The next 3 days passed in a strange kind of suspended time. Marcus went through the motions of his normal life, took construction jobs, made meals, read bedtime stories, but his mind was somewhere else. The folder sat on his kitchen counter, still sealed, the classified markings visible every time he walked past. On Saturday morning, they went back to Carlo's diner. Same booth, same time, maintaining the ritual that had become their anchor. Emma ordered chocolate chip pancakes without being asked. "It's Saturday," Marcus said. "That's the rule." The diner was quieter than usual, people glancing at their booth and then quickly away. The story of what had happened having spread through the small town in the way that stories always do. Marcus could feel the weight of their attention, but he ignored it, focusing on Emma as she worked on the word search on her placemat. The bell above the door chimed. Kira Vaughn walked in. She was wearing her uniform, but something about her had changed. She stood straighter, moved with more confidence. When she saw Marcus, she didn't hesitate. She walked directly to the booth. Marcus nodded, giving her permission to approach. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said. "I just needed to say thank you." "You don't need to," Marcus said. "I do," Kira insisted. "I was going to quit, leave the army, but you reminded me why I joined." Emma looked up from her placemat. "My daddy's the best at helping people," she said with absolute certainty. Kira's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. "He really is," she agreed. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something wrapped in cloth, set it on the table. The cloth unfolded to reveal her unit patch from the Somalia deployment, the same one she'd offered before. But this time it had been sewn onto a small piece of backing to make it permanent. "In case you ever need anything," she said, "from me or anyone in my unit." Marcus accepted the patch with a nod of respect. "You're going to be okay, Specialist," he said. "Sergeant now," Kira corrected with a small smile. "They're investigating the whole chain of command. Brennan and his crew are facing court-martial. Everything's changing." "Good," Marcus said simply. Kira nodded, then turned to Emma. "You should be very proud of your daddy," she said. "I am," Emma replied. "He helps people." After Kira left, Emma picked up the patch and examined it. The unit insignia, the Somalia deployment marker. She traced the stitching with one small finger. "Daddy," she said, "are you going to help the other people? The ones the Admiral told you about?" Marcus looked at his daughter, at her bright eyes and serious expression, at Sergeant the rabbit sitting on the seat beside her. He realized that she already knew his answer. "Yeah, baby," he said quietly. "I think I am." Emma nodded like she had expected nothing less. "When do you go?" she asked. "Soon," Marcus said, "but I'll come back, I promise." "I know," Emma said with perfect faith. "You always keep promises." That evening, Marcus called the number on Admiral Blake's card. "This is Stone," he said when Blake answered. "I'm in, but not the way you think." "Explain," Blake said. "I can't deploy," Marcus said. "I won't leave Emma again, but I can train someone." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Train who?" "Specialist Vaughn, the sniper who froze." "Stone, she washed out. She's being medically discharged." "She didn't wash out," Marcus said. "She broke. There's a difference, and I can fix her." Another pause, longer this time. "You think she can do it?" "I think she has something to prove," Marcus said. "And I think Harper Marlowe deserves someone who won't freeze again." "How long do you need?" 21 days, Marcus said. 3 weeks to turn her into the sniper your team needs." Blake was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could almost hear him calculating, weighing options, assessing risk. "I'll authorize it," Blake said finally. "But Stone, if she washes out—" "She won't," Marcus said. "I'll make sure of it." He hung up, looked at Emma, who had been listening from the doorway. "You're going to help her," Emma said. Not a question, a statement. "I am," Marcus confirmed. "But you're not leaving me," Emma said. "No, sweetheart, I'm not leaving you." Emma smiled, ran to him, hugged him tight. "I knew you'd find a way," she said. "You're the best problem solver." The next morning, Kira Vaughn's phone rang at 6 a.m. She answered it half asleep, expecting her CO with more bad news about her discharge paperwork. "This is Stone," the voice said. "You volunteered for the Marlowe rescue." Kira sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "Sir, Yes, but they told me—" "I know what they told you," Marcus said. "They're wrong. You have 21 days. Be at my address tomorrow morning. 0500. Don't be late." "Sir, I don't understand. What's happening?" "I'm going to train you," Marcus said. 3 weeks, you learn not to freeze. Then you go to Somalia and bring Harper Marlowe home." Kira's breath caught. "Why would you do this?" "Because my daughter asked me to help you," Marcus said simply. "And because Harper deserves someone who won't fail her again." The line went dead. Kira sat in her apartment, phone still pressed to her ear, processing what had just happened. She was being given a second chance by a man who had no reason to trust her, who had every reason to go himself. But he was choosing to stay with his daughter and send Kira in his place. She looked at her hands, the tremor that never quite went away, the physical manifestation of a mind that had broken under pressure. 21 days to fix what 14 months of PTSD had shattered. She wasn't sure it was possible, but she knew she was going to try. The next morning, Kira pulled up to Marcus Stone's property at 4:45, 15 minutes early. She'd learned a long time ago that being early was the only acceptable version of being on time. The house looked different in the pre-dawn darkness. Bigger somehow. The 3 acres of pine forest pressed in from all sides. A single light burned in what she assumed was the kitchen. She sat in her truck for 10 minutes, watching, waiting, trying to control her unsteady hands. At exactly 5 a.m., the front door opened. Marcus stepped out onto the porch. He was wearing work clothes, jeans and a long-sleeved shirt, his hair still pulled back. He looked at her truck, nodded once. Kira got out, grabbed her duffel bag from the passenger seat, walked up the gravel path to the porch. Marcus studied her, taking in the dark circles under her eyes, the tense set of her shoulders, the way she held herself like she was ready to bolt at any second. "You look like hell," he said. "Haven't been sleeping much, sir," Kira replied. "Don't call me sir. I'm not your commanding officer. I'm Marcus. You're Kira. We clear?" "Clear." "Good." He gestured toward the back of the property. "There's a shed out back. You'll sleep there. Bathrooms in the house. Meals at 6, 12, and 1800. Training starts in 30 minutes. "What kind of training?" Kira asked. Marcus looked at her. Really looked at her, seeing past the uniform and the rank to the broken woman underneath. "The kind that fixes what's broken," he said. "The kind that makes sure Harper Marlowe comes home alive." He turned to go inside, then stopped. "Kira, what happened in Somalia, that wasn't failure. That was biology. Your brain protecting you from trauma. We're going to override that biology, reprogram your responses. It's going to be hell. You're going to want to quit, and I'm not going to let you." "Why?" Kira asked. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus looked toward the window where Emma's room was. "Because my daughter reminded me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, and sometimes the hardest thing is giving it." He went inside, left Kira standing on the porch in the pre-dawn cold. She found the shed. It was small but clean. A cot, a footlocker, a battery-powered lamp. Spartan, military, exactly what she expected. She dropped her duffel on the cot, sat down, took a breath. 21 days, 3 weeks to become someone who didn't freeze, someone who could pull the trigger when a child's life depended on it. She looked at her hands, the tremor still visible. "Override the biology," she whispered to herself. "Reprogram the responses." Through the window, she could see lights coming on in the main house, could hear the faint sounds of a 7-year-old girl waking up, getting ready for school, living a normal life while the broken soldier in the shed prepared for war. Kira closed her eyes, saw Harper Marlowe's terrified face, saw the terrorist's finger on the trigger, saw her own finger, frozen, unable to save a child who needed saving. "Not again," she said. "Never again." At 5:30, Marcus knocked on the shed door. When Kira opened it, he handed her a cup of coffee. "Drink this," he said, "then meet me at the tree line. We start with a 12-mile run, full ruck, 50 pounds. Kira took the coffee. "I can do that." "I know you can," Marcus said. "The running's not the hard part. The hard part comes after." He walked away, toward a path that led into the woods. The sky was just beginning to lighten, gray dawn creeping through the pines. Kira drank the coffee, hot and bitter, and exactly what she needed. She strapped on her ruck, 50 pounds of sandbags Marcus had left for her, stepped out into the cold morning air. Behind her, in the main house, she could see Emma's silhouette in a window, the little girl holding Sergeant the Rabbit, watching. Kira raised her hand, a small wave. Emma waved back. Then Kira turned and ran after Marcus Stone, into the woods, into 3 weeks of hell that might turn her back into the soldier she used to be. The soldier who didn't freeze. The soldier who could save a child named Harper. Day 1 had begun. Day 8. The run was exactly as advertised. 12 miles through pine forest on trails that barely qualified as trails. By day 8, what had destroyed Kira on day 1 now felt almost manageable. Almost. Her time this morning, 1 hour, 53 minutes. Under the 2-hour mark Marcus had demanded, her body was adapting. Muscles that had atrophied during 3 months of medical leave were rebuilding. Calluses forming where blisters had been. She finished at the clearing where Marcus waited with water and the rifle case. The routine had become familiar, sacred even. This hour before Emma woke up belonged to the work of rebuilding a broken soldier. Time? Marcus asked. 1:53, Kira said between breaths. Marcus nodded. No praise, no criticism, just acknowledgement. She'd learned that was his way. Results spoke. Words didn't. He opened the case. The Shytac gleamed in the pre-dawn light. Kira had cleaned it last night until her fingers cramped, had stripped and reassembled it blindfolded, had dry-fired until the trigger press felt like breathing. 800 yards, Marcus said. 5 targets. You have 30 seconds. This was new. He'd been building time pressure gradually. First, unlimited time. Then 2 minutes. Then 1. Now 30 seconds for 5 shots at 800 yards. Kira took position. The fundamentals locked in automatically now. Prone, elbows planted, cheek weld, eye relief. The tremor in her hands persisted. It always did, but she'd learned to shoot through it. Stand by, Marcus said. He pulled a remote from his pocket. Starting in 3, 2, 1, execute. Speakers hidden in the trees erupted with sound. Gunfire, explosions, screaming. The audio from a firefight played at volume that made her ears ring. Kira's heart rate spiked. The noise triggered something primal. Some part of her brain that said, danger, take cover, shut down. Her crosshairs wavered off target. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. She found the first target, a silhouette at 800 yards. Adjusted for wind, pulled the trigger. The rifle barked. The silhouette snapped back. Bolt, chamber, acquire. Second target. The speakers were screaming now. Someone yelling for a medic. The sound of rounds impacting near the microphone. The tremor in her hands intensified. Shoot through it. Pull. Impact. Bolt. Chamber. Acquire. 15 seconds gone. 3 targets remaining. Her breathing was accelerating. The panic trying to claw its way up her throat. The same cascade that had frozen her in Somalia. Then she heard something else under the gunfire sounds. A small voice, young and clear. You can do it, Miss Kira. Emma, standing at the edge of the clearing in her pajamas, holding Sergeant the Rabbit. She must have heard the sounds and come running. Marcus hadn't stopped the drill. Kiera's heart rate steadied, just slightly, just enough. Third target, acquire, shoot, impact. Fourth target, acquire, shoot, impact. Fifth target. She had 4 seconds left. The crosshairs were dancing. The noise was overwhelming. Every instinct screamed to pull away from the rifle, to cover her ears, to shut down. Being brave means doing it anyway. She pulled the trigger. The speakers cut off. Sudden silence that was almost as disorienting as the noise had been. Downrange, all 5 targets had been hit. Center mass. Under 30 seconds. 27 seconds, Marcus said. Acceptable. Kira rolled onto her back, staring up at the lightning sky. Her entire body was shaking now. Not just her hands. Everything. The adrenaline dump was massive. Small footsteps approached. Emma knelt beside her. Sergeant held out like an offering. You did really good, Emma said seriously, even when it was scary. Kira took the rabbit, clutched it to her chest. The absurdity of being comforted by a 7-year-old and a stuffed animal wasn't lost on her. But right now, she'd take comfort wherever she found it. Thank you, she managed. Emma smiled, then looked at her father. Daddy, can Miss Kiera have breakfast with us? She looks hungry. Marcus checked his watch. 13 minutes until your bus. Go get dressed. Emma ran back toward the house, Sergeant bouncing in her arms. Marcus extended a hand to Kira, pulled her to her feet. You broke through something today, he said. Audio stress plus time pressure. You didn't freeze. I almost did, Kira said. Almost doesn't count, Marcus replied. You took the shots. That's all that matters. Inside, the kitchen smelled like coffee and pancakes. Emma was at the table, now dressed for school, carefully pouring syrup on her breakfast. Marcus gestured for Kira to sit. You eat pancakes? He asked. I eat anything, Kira said. Marcus put a plate in front of her. 3 pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon. More food than she'd eaten in a single meal in months. Her appetite had died in Somalia. Apparently, it was coming back. Emma watched her eat with the intense focus children have when they're trying to figure out adults. Miss Kiera, she said, are you going to save the little girl? Kiera's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She looked at Marcus. He was at the stove, his back to them, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. I'm going to try, Kiera said carefully. Daddy says trying isn't enough, Emma said. He says you have to do it or not do it. There's no try. Marcus turned around. Emma, eat your breakfast. But Emma wasn't done. The little girl is scared, right? Like I was when Mommy died? The question hung in the air. Marcus set down the spatula, came to the table, sat across from his daughter. Yes, he said quietly, she's very scared. Then Miss Kiera will save her, Emma said with absolute certainty, because you're teaching her how, and you're the best teacher. She said it like it was the simplest thing in the world, like there was no possibility of failure, like faith alone could overcome PTSD and trauma and 14 months of being broken. Kira wanted to believe her, wanted to have that kind of certainty. Instead, she had 13 days left and a mission that would put a child's life in her unsteady hands. The school bus horn honked from the road. Emma grabbed her backpack, kissed her father's cheek, and ran for the door. Paused at the threshold. Miss Kiera, you should keep Sergeant today. He helps when things are scary. Before Kira could respond, Emma was gone. The sound of the bus pulling away faded into morning quiet. Marcus picked up the stuffed rabbit from the table, looked at it for a long moment, then handed it to Kira. She doesn't give him to just anyone, he said. That rabbit got her through 6 months of not speaking. She trusts you with it. Kira took Sergeant. The fabric was worn soft. One ear was definitely shorter than the other. There was a small patch sewn on the chest that she hadn't noticed before. A Navy SEAL trident. You gave her this, she said. Before a deployment, Marcus said. Told her he'd protect me. Told her if I had him, I'd always come back. Did you? Every time, Marcus said, until I stopped deploying. He cleared the table, put dishes in the sink. When he spoke again, his voice was different, quieter, more personal than she'd heard in 8 days. Emma was in the car when Sarah died, he said. Back seat, car seat. She saw everything. The drunk driver crossed the center line. Head-on collision. Sarah died instantly. Emma was physically fine, not a scratch, but she stopped talking. Kira held Sergeant tighter. I didn't know. I was in Yemen when it happened, Marcus continued. Hostage rescue, American journalist. The mission was time-sensitive. I had a choice. Abort and fly home immediately, or finish the mission and get home whenever we could arrange transport. He was staring out the window at the pine forest, not seeing it, seeing something else. Some memory he carried that wouldn't let go. I finished the mission, he said, saved the journalist, got him home to his family. By the time I landed stateside, Sarah had been buried 3 days. Emma was with her grandmother. I walked in the door and she looked at me like I was a stranger. Wouldn't come near me, wouldn't speak. For 6 months. How did you get through to her? Kira asked. Marcus turned from the window. I didn't. She got through to me. I'd sit with her every night, read books, tell stories. Wait. One night, 6 months in, she picked up Sergeant, looked at me, and said, "Daddy, you came back." He paused. Those were the first words she'd spoken since the accident, and what she needed to know was that I came back, that I kept my promise. Kira understood now why he'd retired, why he'd chosen this quiet life, why he couldn't deploy even to save Harper Marlowe. "You can't break another promise to her," she said. "No," Marcus agreed. "I can't. So you're going to Somalia. You're going to be the sniper I trained, and you're going to bring Harper home. Because I can't do both. Can't be the father Emma needs and the operator the Navy needs." He looked at her, really looked at her. "Can you do it, Kira? Can you be what Harper needs?" Kira looked down at Sergeant the Rabbit, at the sealed trident patch, at the physical manifestation of a promise kept. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I'm going to find out." Day 15. The nightmare was always the same. Kira behind the rifle, Harper in the crosshairs, the terrorist's finger on the trigger, her own finger frozen, the sound of the shot, the little girl falling, and Harper's face turning toward her, blood streaming, eyes accusing, "You let me die." Kira jerked awake in the shed, heart hammering, sheets soaked with sweat. The digital clock read 3:47 a.m. She'd managed 4 hours of sleep, better than most nights. She sat up, reached for the water bottle beside the cot. The tremor in her hands was worse than usual. The nightmares always made it worse. Outside, she heard footsteps on gravel, a knock on the shed door. "You up?" Marcus's voice. "Yeah," Kira called. "Get dressed. We're doing something different today." 10 minutes later, she was following Marcus through the dark woods. Not to the shooting range, a different direction, deeper into the property. He carried a large duffel bag, wouldn't tell her what was in it. They emerged into a clearing she hadn't seen before. In the center was a structure that made her stomach drop. A mock-up. Rough but unmistakable. A single-story building, concrete blocks, one window, one door. The Mogadishu compound. "How long have you been building this?" Kira asked. "Since day 3, Marcus said. "Took me 12 days working after you went to sleep." He was recreating her nightmare, making it physical. She wanted to run, wanted to get back in her truck and drive away and never come back. Her breathing was already accelerating. "I can't do this," she said. "Yes, you can," Marcus said. He pulled items from the duffel, mannequins, adult-sized and child-sized, a rifle, not the Shytac, an AK-47, a timer. He positioned the adult mannequin inside the structure, positioned the child mannequin in front of it, put the AK-47 in the adult mannequin's hands, barrel against the child's head. It was Harper. It was Somalia. It was the exact scenario that had broken her. 900 yards from here to there, Marcus said, pointing to a position outside the clearing. Same range as Somalia, same shot. You have 5 seconds from when I start the timer. After 5 seconds, I trigger a blank round. The sound means Harper dies. You fail. Kira was shaking her head. "I can't. I've tried this shot 100 times in my head. I freeze every time." "In your head, yes," Marcus said, "because in your head, it's still the real thing. It's still Somalia. It's still the moment you broke. Out here, it's mannequins. It's training. It's a chance to rewrite the memory." "You can't rewrite memories," Kira said. "You can't erase them," Marcus agreed. "But you can build new ones, better ones, ones where you don't freeze, where you take the shot, where Harper lives." He walked to the shooting position, set up the Chi-Tac on a low platform. "Come here," he said. Kira's legs felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds, but she moved, one foot in front of the other. Muscle memory from 14 days of following Marcus's orders. She took position behind the rifle. The mannequins were clearly visible even in the pre-dawn darkness. Marcus had set up lights, making sure she could see everything, making sure there were no excuses. I'm going to leave you here, Marcus said. You're going to take this shot, as many times as it takes. I don't care if it takes an hour. I don't care if it takes all day. You're not leaving this clearing until you take the shot in under 5 seconds, without freezing. What if I can't? Kira asked. Her voice was small, broken. Marcus knelt beside her. Then Harper Marlowe dies, and it's on you. Again, is that what you want? The words were brutal, designed to hurt, designed to make her angry. Anger was better than fear. Anger could override the freeze response. That's not fair, Kira said. No, Marcus agreed. It's not, but it's true. He stood, started walking away, stopped at the edge of the clearing. Kira, you're not the same person who froze in Somalia. You're stronger now, faster, better trained. I've put you through hell for 15 days. You've earned this shot. Now take it. Then he was gone, disappeared into the trees, left her alone with the mannequins and the rifle and the demons she'd been running from for 14 months. Kira settled behind the Shytac, put her eye to the scope. The child mannequin filled the optic. She could see the AK-47 barrel against its head, could see the adult mannequin's finger on the trigger. She moved the crosshairs to the adult mannequin's head. 900 yards. Slight crosswind, temperature dropping as dawn approached. She calculated the adjustments automatically. The math was easy. The physics were simple. The psychology was impossible. Her finger found the trigger and froze. The cascade began. Heart rate spiking, breathing irregular, vision tunneling. The mannequins stopped being mannequins, became Harper and the terrorist, became real and immediate and terrifying. She pulled away from the rifle, gasped for air. The panic attack was full-blown now. She couldn't do this, couldn't face this, couldn't. A small voice in her memory, Emma's voice. Being brave means doing it anyway. Kira forced herself back behind the rifle, forced her eye to the scope, forced her finger to the trigger. Freeze. She screamed, frustration and rage and self-hatred pouring out in a sound that scattered birds from the trees. She wanted to throw the rifle, wanted to smash the mannequins, wanted to burn this entire clearing to the ground. Instead, she took a breath. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Got back behind the rifle. Crosshairs on target, finger on trigger. Freeze. Again, and again, and again. The sun rose. Kira was still trying, still freezing. Her body was cramping from holding position. Her eye was strained from staring through the scope. Her mind was a wasteland of failure and self-recrimination. Attempt number 37. She didn't even know anymore, had lost count, lost track of time, lost everything except the mannequins and the trigger and the frozen finger that wouldn't obey. Her vision blurred with tears. She was done, finished. Marcus had been wrong about her. The army had been right to discharge her. She couldn't do this, would never be able to do this. Harper was going to die, because Kira Vaughn was broken beyond repair. She pressed her forehead against the rifle stock, closed her eyes, whispered into the dirt. I'm sorry, Harper. I'm so sorry. Footsteps approached, small footsteps. A weight settled beside her. When Kira opened her eyes, Emma was sitting cross-legged on the ground, Sergeant in her lap. Hi, Miss Kira, Emma said, like it was completely normal to find a grown woman crying behind a rifle in the middle of the woods. Emma, you should go back to the house, Kira managed. Daddy said you were fighting your scary thing, Emma said. I wanted to help. I don't think you can help with this one, sweetheart. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, when I was scared to talk, you know what helped? Kira shook her head. I remembered that Mommy loved me, even though she was gone, and Daddy loved me, even though he was far away sometimes, and Sergeant loved me, because he's magic. She said it with the absolute conviction of a 7-year-old. Love makes scary things smaller. I don't think Harper knows I love her, Kira said. I've never met her. You don't have to meet someone to love them, Emma said. Daddy taught me that. He said there are people all over the world he's never met, but he fought for them anyway, because everyone deserves to be safe. That's love too. The simple wisdom of a child, cutting through all the trauma and PTSD and complex psychology to arrive at something fundamental. Harper deserved to be safe. That was enough. That had to be enough. Will you stay with me while I try again? Kira asked. Emma nodded. I'll hold Sergeant. He'll help. Kira got back behind the rifle. Emma sat beside her, humming something tunelessly, holding the rabbit. Crosshairs on target, finger on trigger. This time, Kira didn't think about Somalia, didn't think about freezing, didn't think about failure. She thought about a 9-year-old girl she'd never met, who was scared and alone and waiting for someone to save her, who deserved safety and childhood and a life not defined by terror. Harper deserved better than Kira's broken brain. Kira pulled the trigger. The rifle barked. The mannequin's head snapped back. Clean hit. The AK-47 clattered to the ground. Kira stared through the scope, not quite believing. The tremor in her hands was still there. Her heart was still racing, but she'd taken the shot. You did it, Emma squealed. You saved her. It's just a mannequin, Kira said, but her voice was shaking too. But now you know you can, Emma said. That's what Daddy says. You practice until your body remembers. Then when it's real, your body just does it. Marcus emerged from the trees. He'd been there the whole time, watching, waiting. He looked at the mannequin, at Kira, at his daughter. How long? He asked Emma. Emma checked a stopwatch Kira hadn't noticed she was holding. 4.2 seconds. Marcus nodded. Acceptable. Again. Again, Kira said. 47 more times, Marcus said, until you can do it without thinking, without hesitating, until it's muscle memory. So Kira shot again, and again, and again. Emma sat beside her for every shot, Sergeant in her lap, calling out times. Marcus adjusted the scenario, changed the mannequin positions, added wind, added time pressure, added sound. By the time the sun was directly overhead, Kira had taken the shot 50 times. 50 successful shots, not one freeze. Her body was exhausted. Her mind was numb. But something had shifted. Some barrier had cracked. The demon that had haunted her for 14 months was still there. Would probably always be there. But it didn't control her anymore. That's enough for today, Marcus said. Clean your rifle. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start the mission-specific training. Mission-specific? Kira asked. Somalia compound layout, Marcus said. Guard rotations. Team integration. The actual operation you'll be executing in 6 days. 6 days. The number hit her like a physical blow. 6 days until she deployed. Until this stopped being training and became real. Until Harper Marlowe's life depended on whether Kira Vaughn could pull a trigger when it mattered. Day 21. The C-130 Hercules sat on the tarmac at Fort Baxter Naval Air Station. Its engines were warming up. The sound was a low rumble that Kira felt in her chest. In 6 hours, that plane would be wheels up, headed to Somalia, with her on it. She stood in Marcus Stone's garage. The space had been converted into a mission planning center over the last 6 days. Maps of Mogadishu covered the walls. Satellite imagery of the compound. Guard rotation schedules. Exfil routes. Everything she needed to know to make the shot that would save Harper Marlowe. Or get everyone killed trying. The Shytac M200 sat on the workbench, cleaned and ready. Beside it was her gear. Tactical vest, communications equipment, camouflage appropriate for urban desert environment. Everything provided by Admiral Blake's logistics team. And on top of the rifle case, carefully attached to the sling, was a small patch. The Navy SEAL Trident. the same one that had been sewn onto Sergeant the Rabbit. Marcus entered the garage carrying 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Kira. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Haven't slept in 3 days," Kira admitted. "Keep running through the scenarios. Every possible thing that could go wrong." "That's good," Marcus said. "Means you're thinking like an operator. But you need to sleep on the plane. You'll have 18 hours of flight time. Use it." Kira sipped the coffee, trying to absorb these last moments of instruction, these last hours before everything became real. "Marcus," she said, "what if I freeze again?" He'd been waiting for this question, had probably known it was coming since day one. "You won't," he said simply. "You can't know that." "I can," Marcus said, "because I've watched you take that shot 217 times over the last 6 days. I've added every stressor I could think of. Sound, time, movement, fatigue, and you haven't frozen once. Not since day 15. "But that was training," Kira said. "This is different. This is Harper. This is real." Marcus set down his coffee. "Come with me." He led her out of the garage, across the property to the clearing where the mock-up compound stood. Dawn was breaking. The light was gray and uncertain. Marcus had changed the scenario. The mannequins were gone. In their place stood a photograph, life-sized, laminated, mounted on a stand in the exact position where the child mannequin had been. Harper Marlowe, from the hostage video, terrified, crying, hands bound. Behind her another photograph, the terrorist, face covered, a K-47 visible. "One more shot," Marcus said. "The real scenario, the real Harper. You make this shot, you're ready." Kira took position behind the ShyTac, 900 yards. The photographs were incredibly detailed. She could see the tears on Harper's face, could see the girl's lip trembling, could see the absolute terror in a child's eyes. The tremor in her hands worsened. The photograph made it real in a way the mannequins never had. This was what she'd see through her scope in Somalia. This was the shot. This was the moment that had broken her 14 months ago. Finger on trigger. The freeze tried to come. She felt it building. The familiar cascade of panic and shutdown and failure. Then she heard Emma's voice. Not in her memory this time. Real. The little girl had followed them from the house. Still in her pajamas, Sergeant clutched to her chest. "Miss Kiera," Emma called. "Remember what I told you. Love makes scary things smaller." Kiera took a breath, thought about Harper, about a child who deserved safety, who deserved to grow up and go to school and fight with her parents over bedtime and experience all the normal, beautiful, mundane things that made a childhood. Harper deserved better than Kiera's fear. She pulled the trigger. The photograph of the terrorist's head exploded. Clean headshot. The Harper photograph stood untouched. The tremor in Kira's hands was still there. Her heart was still racing, but she'd taken the shot. "Time?" Marcus asked. Emma checked the stopwatch. 2.8 seconds. Marcus nodded, walked to Kira, extended his hand. She took it. He pulled her to her feet. "You're ready," he said. 3 hours later, Kira stood at the base of the C-130 loading ramp. The SEAL team was already aboard. 6 operators who'd been briefed that their Overwatch sniper was a female specialist with a history of freezing under pressure. They weren't happy about it, but they were professional enough to not say anything directly. Admiral Blake stood beside the aircraft with Marcus and Emma. "Specialist Vaughn," Blake said formally, "the Marlowe family is counting on you. Don't let them down." "I won't, sir," Kira said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. She turned to Marcus, wanted to say something profound, something that captured what the last 3 weeks had meant. How he'd taken someone broken and made them functional. How he'd given her a second chance when everyone else had given up. "Thank you," was all she could manage. It wasn't enough, would never be enough. Marcus nodded. "Remember, what you're feeling right now? That's just biology. Override it." Then Emma was there, tugging on Kira's sleeve. When Kira knelt down, the little girl threw her arms around her neck. "You're going to save Harper," Emma whispered. "I know you are." "How do you know?" Kira asked. "Because Sergeant says so." Emma pulled back, held out the stuffed rabbit, and he's never wrong. Kira took Sergeant, the rabbit that had helped a traumatized child find her voice, that had protected a Navy SEAL through countless deployments, that now carried the weight of a 7-year-old's absolute faith. "I can't take him," Kira said. "You need him." "You need him more right now," Emma said firmly. "Bring him home to me. Promise?" Kira looked at Marcus. He nodded slightly. Permission granted. "I promise," Kira said. Emma smiled. "Good, because you always keep promises. Daddy taught me that." Kira stood, tucked Sergeant into her tactical vest, right over her heart, the same place Marcus had carried him, the same place that now held a child's faith and a sniper's determination and the weight of a mission that couldn't fail. She walked up the ramp, didn't look back, couldn't. If she looked back, she might not get on the plane. The ramp closed, the engines roared, the C-130 began to taxi. Emma stood between the Admiral and her father, waving at the plane. Marcus had one hand on her shoulder. His face was unreadable, but his eyes tracked the aircraft until it lifted off and disappeared into the morning sky. "She'll be okay, right, Daddy?" Emma asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "She's as ready as I could make her," he said finally. "That means yes," Emma said with certainty, "because you're the best." Admiral Blake looked at Marcus. "You trained her well, Stone, but training can only do so much. When she's behind that rifle and Harper's in her crosshairs, it's all on her." "I know," Marcus said. He was still watching the empty sky. "That's what scares me." Mogadishu, Somalia, 72 hours later. The heat was suffocating. Kiara had been in position for 6 hours, prone on a rooftop 1,100 yards from the target compound. The distance was further than intel had suggested, further than she'd trained for. The Chi-Tak was hot to the touch from the sun. Sweat soaked through her uniform. She'd already gone through 2 water bladders. Dehydration was becoming a concern. But she couldn't move, couldn't adjust position. The slightest movement might give away her location. And if she was compromised, the entire mission failed. In her ear, the SEAL team leader's voice crackled. Lieutenant Sawyer Hayes, 32 years old, 10 years in the teams, 2 deployments to Somalia. He'd made his opinion of her clear during the mission brief. "Overwatch, this is ground. Radio check." Kira keyed her mic. "Ground Overwatch, I read you Lima Charlie. Copy, stand by for final brief." There was a pause. Then Hayes continued, his voice tight. "Marlowe family is in the northwest corner room, 2nd floor. Intel confirms 3 tangos on site, 1 rooftop sentry. That's your shot. You take him down, we breach. You miss, we're compromised and the Marlows die. Clear?" "Clear," Kira said. "And Vaughn? I read your file. I know you froze last time, so I'm going to say this once. If you freeze again, if you hesitate for even a second, I'm pulling my team and we're gone. I'm not losing my men because you can't do your job. Acknowledge." Kira's grip tightened on the rifle. "Acknowledged." The radio went silent. Kira was alone again with the heat and the rifle, and the voice in her head that said, "You're going to freeze. You're going to fail. Harper's going to die, and it will be your fault." She closed her eyes, reached into her vest, pulled out Sergeant the Rabbit. The fabric was dusty now, stained with sweat, but the SEAL trident patch was still visible. Still a reminder of promises kept, of faith earned, of a little girl in North Carolina who believed in her. "Love makes scary things smaller," Kira whispered. Emma's words, simple and profound, and exactly what she needed. She tucked Sergeant back into her vest, got back behind the scope. The compound filled her view. 3-story building, concrete construction, flat roof. Guard rotations had been consistent for the last 6 hours. Every 90 minutes, the rooftop sentry changed out. New guard came up, old guard went down. 15 seconds of vulnerability when both men were visible. But that wasn't the shot. The shot was the sentry, alone on the roof, standing watch, between Kira and Harper Marlowe. The sun was setting, temperature dropping, wind picking up. The shot was getting harder by the minute. Her radio crackled. Overwatch ground, we're moving to staging position. Breach in 15 mics. Confirm you have eyes on target. Kira scanned the rooftop. The sentry was there, standing near the northwest corner, a K-47 slung over his shoulder, cigarette in his mouth, casual, unaware that 1,100 yards away, a broken sniper was calculating how to end his life. Ground, Overwatch, I have eyes on target. Copy, you are cleared hot. Take the shot when ready. We breach on your gunfire. Cleared hot. Permission to kill. The words should have been routine, should have been just another mission parameter. Instead, they made her stomach clench. She'd never killed anyone. 14 months ago, that had been her problem. Now it was her job. Kiera settled into the rifle. Proper cheek weld, proper eye relief. The fundamentals that Marcus had drilled into her for 3 weeks. The mechanics were perfect. They were always perfect. The psychology was the variable. She put the crosshairs on the sentry's head. 1,147 yards. The Shytac could make the shot. She'd made longer shots in training, but training didn't shoot back. Training didn't have consequences. Her finger found the trigger and froze. No, not now, not here, not when it mattered. She pulled away from the scope, gasped for air. The panic was immediate and overwhelming. Every nightmare, every failure, every frozen moment compressed into this instant. Overwatch ground, status? Kira couldn't respond, couldn't speak. Her throat had closed. The tremor in her hands was so violent, the rifle was dancing. Overwatch, I need a status check, now. In her vest, pressed against her heart, she felt Sergeant the Rabbit, felt the weight of a child's faith, felt Emma's absolute certainty that Kira would save Harper. Because you always keep promises. Kira forced herself back behind the rifle, forced her breathing to slow. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. The technique Marcus had taught her, the one that had failed in Somalia but worked in training. Please work now. The crosshairs steadied, just barely, just enough. The sentry turned, facing her direction. If he had binoculars, if he scanned the roofline, he might see the glint of her scope, might raise the alarm, might execute the Marlows before the SEALs could breach. Now or never. Kira thought about Harper, about a 9-year-old girl who'd been terrified for 3 days, who was waiting for someone to save her, who deserved to go home. Love makes scary things smaller. She pulled the trigger. The Shytac barked. The recoil punched into her shoulder. For 2.8 seconds, the bullet flew through 1,147 yards of African air. Kira held her breath, held position, held on to the hope that she hadn't frozen, that she'd done it right, that the 3 weeks of training had been enough. The sentry's head snapped back. He dropped like someone had cut his strings. The AK-47 clattered to the rooftop. He didn't move again. Overwatch, ground, tango down, nice shot, breaching now. Kira couldn't respond, couldn't process what had just happened. She'd taken the shot. After 1,147 yards and 14 months of being broken and 3 weeks of hell with Marcus Stone, she'd actually taken the shot. The tremor in her hands was worse than ever, but the shot was made. The sentry was down. The mission was proceeding. Ground, Overwatch, she managed finally. Copy breach, I have Overwatch. Through her scope, she watched the SEAL team flow into the compound. 6 shadows moving with practiced precision. Doors blown. Flashbangs detonating. The carefully choreographed violence of a hostage rescue. Kira scanned for additional threats. spotted two more tangos exiting a side door. They were moving toward the SEAL's position, trying to flank. Ground, overwatch, two tangos, your 6 o'clock, engaging. She didn't wait for permission, didn't think, just aimed and fired. First tango dropped, chambered another round. Second tango was turning toward the sound. Too late. Kiera's second shot caught him center mass. He fell. Overwatch, good kills. We're entering the hostage room. Stand by. The wait was agony. 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Kiera kept her scope moving, watching for threats, watching for anything that could compromise the team. Then Hayes' voice. Ground to Overwatch. We have the package. All 3 Marlows accounted for. Moving to exfil. Kiera's vision blurred. She was crying and didn't remember starting. The relief was so intense it was physical. Harper was alive. The mission was succeeding. She hadn't frozen when it mattered. Copy ground. I'll cover your exfil. She stayed on Overwatch for another 20 minutes, watching the SEALs extract the Marlowe family, watching them reach the vehicles, watching them disappear toward the landing zone where helicopters waited. Only when Hayes radioed, Overwatch, ground is clear, collapse to exfil, did she finally pull away from the rifle. Her entire body was shaking now. The adrenaline dump was massive. She'd made 3 kills, had saved a family, had completed the mission she'd been training for since day 1. She'd done it. Kiera pulled Sergeant from her vest, looked at the dusty, sweat-stained rabbit, at the SEAL trident patch that had protected her through the impossible. We did it, she whispered to the toy. We saved her. Then she collapsed the rifle, packed her gear, and began the movement to the exfil point where a helicopter would take her away from Somalia, away from the nightmare that had defined 14 months of her life, toward home, toward Pinehurst, toward a 7-year-old girl waiting for her promise to be kept. Fort Baxter, 36 hours later. The C-130 touched down at Fort Baxter just after dawn. Kiera walked down the ramp into North Carolina sunshine, still in her tactical gear, Chi-Tac rifle case in hand, Sergeant the Rabbit visible in her vest pocket. Admiral Blake was waiting, along with several officers she didn't recognize. They snapped to attention as she approached. Specialist Vaughn, Blake said. Well done. The Marlowe family is safe because of you. Thank you, sir, Kiera managed. She was exhausted. Hadn't slept on the return flight. Too wired. Too full of adrenaline and relief and disbelief that she'd actually done it. Lieutenant Hayes filed his after-action report, Blake continued. 3 confirmed kills, perfect shot placement, 0 friendly casualties. He called your performance exceptional. The Admiral smiled slightly. He also said he was wrong about you. That's not something Hayes says often. Kiera didn't know how to respond to that, so she just nodded. Where's Stone? She asked. Blake's smile widened. Where do you think? 20 minutes later, Kiera pulled into the parking lot at Carlo's Diner. 8:17 on a Saturday morning. Exactly the time Marcus and Emma would be there. She sat in her truck for a moment, still in her dusty tactical gear, still carrying the rifle case, still processing the fact that she'd gone to war and come back. Then she got out, walked to the diner door, pushed it open. The bell chimed. Every head in the place turned, looked at the soldier standing in the doorway with a rifle case and 1,000-yard stare. Then Emma's voice, high and clear. Miss Kiera! The little girl was out of the booth and running before Marcus could stop her. She crashed into Kiera's legs, wrapping her arms around her knees, squeezing tight. You came back. You kept your promise. Kiera knelt down. Emma threw her arms around her neck. Kiera hugged her back, crushing the small body against her chest, feeling the little girl's heartbeat, alive and safe and exactly where she should be. Did you save Harper? Emma whispered. Yes, Kiera said. Her voice was thick. Harper's safe. She's with her family. Emma pulled back. Her eyes were shining. I knew you would. Daddy said you would. And Sergeant said you would. Kira pulled the rabbit from her vest, held him out. Sergeant did his job. He protected me the whole time. Emma took the rabbit, examined him carefully, noticed the dust and sweat stains, the way his ears were even more uneven now, the small tear in his side that hadn't been there before. He looks different, Emma said. He's been to war, Kira said. Just like your daddy, just like me. We all come back a little different. Emma nodded seriously, like she understood more than a 7-year-old should. Then she grabbed Kira's hand. Come sit with us. Daddy saved you a pancake. Marcus was still in the booth. He stood as they approached. His eyes swept over Kira, taking in the tactical gear, the exhaustion, the subtle changes that 3 weeks of training and one mission had carved into her. Welcome back, he said simply. Thank you, Kira said, for everything. Marcus gestured to the booth. Sit, eat, then we'll talk. Kira slid into the booth, Emma pressed against her side, Sergeant in her lap. Doreen appeared with coffee and orange juice, set them down without comment, but her eyes were kind. Pancakes? She asked. Please, Kira said. They ate in comfortable silence, Emma chattering about school and her friends, and a drawing she'd made that was now on the refrigerator. Marcus listened to his daughter with the complete attention he gave everything. Kira just absorbed the normalcy, the safety, the profound gift of being in a diner on a Saturday morning instead of on a rooftop in Mogadishu. When Emma excused herself to use the bathroom, Marcus finally spoke. Hayes sent me the after action, he said quietly. Said you made an 1,100-yard shot under pressure. 3 kills total, 0 hesitation. I hesitated, Kira admitted. For about 10 seconds, I couldn't pull the trigger. Then I remembered what Emma said, about love making scary things smaller. Marcus nodded. And the hands? Kira held them out. The tremor was there, would probably always be there, but it was manageable now, controllable. Still there, she said, but I can shoot through it. That's all that matters, Marcus said. Admiral Blake chose that moment to enter the diner. He walked directly to their booth. Marcus stood. They shook hands with the mutual respect of warriors who'd served in different eras, but understood each other perfectly. Stone. Vaughn. Blake nodded to each of them. Mind if I join you? Marcus gestured to the seat beside Kira. Blake sat, pulled a folder from inside his jacket, set it on the table. Specialist Vaughn, the Army is rescinding your medical discharge, he said formally. You're being promoted to Staff Sergeant, effective immediately. Kira stared at him. Sir, I don't understand. We're launching a program, Blake said. Female sniper training course, based at Fort Baxter. We need an instructor who's proven herself. Someone who knows what it's like to break and come back. Someone who can teach the next generation that fear doesn't disqualify you from service. He slid the folder toward her. This is your offer. Full curriculum design authority, choice of personnel, reporting directly to me. You'll be building something from the ground up. Kira opened the folder, scanned the details. The scope of the program, the resources being committed, the faith being placed in a woman who'd been declared unfit for duty 4 weeks ago. I've never taught before, she said. You've lived it, Blake replied. That's better than any teaching manual. Kira looked at Marcus. I can't do this alone. Marcus was already shaking his head. I'm retired. I'm not deploying. I'm not consulting, Kira interrupted. Not deploying. Curriculum design. Training methodology. The stuff you did with me, but you'd be home every night with Emma. Emma had returned from the bathroom. She'd heard the last part. Daddy, you can help people without leaving me, just like you helped Miss Kira. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the absolute faith in her eyes, at the certainty that her father could do anything. Then at Kira, at the sniper he'd rebuilt from broken pieces, at the woman who'd kept her promise and brought Harper Marlowe home. Consulting only, he said finally. I'm not deploying. Deal, Blake said immediately. Kira felt something shift in her chest, a weight she'd been carrying for 14 months. Not gone, would never be gone, but lighter, manageable. She'd been broken. Marcus had helped her rebuild. Now she'd help others do the same. I accept, she said, on one condition. Name it, Blake said. Kira looked at Emma, at Sergeant the rabbit in the little girl's arms, at the physical manifestation of faith and promises, and the power of believing in people when they couldn't believe in themselves. The program needs a symbol, Kira said, something the trainees can hold on to when they're struggling, when they think they can't do it. I want to create patches, seal tridents, like the one on Sergeant. We give them out when someone completes the program, when they prove they won't freeze. Emma's face lit up. Like Sergeant's patch, the one that means you keep promises. Exactly like that, Kira said. Blake considered, then nodded. Approved. We'll call them Sergeant Patches, in honor of the rabbit that's protected more warriors than most medals. Emma hugged Sergeant tighter. Did you hear that? You're famous. Marcus caught Kira's eye. Something passed between them. Understanding. Respect. The bond of people who'd walk through fire and come out the other side, changed but unbroken. Thank you, Kira mouthed silently. Marcus nodded, then smiled. Actually smiled, the first real smile Kira had seen from him in 3 weeks. They finished breakfast, made plans for the training program, discussed curriculum and facilities, and the dozens of details that would need to be addressed. But underneath it all was something simpler. A broken soldier had been rebuilt. A child had been saved. A promise had been kept. And in a small-town diner in North Carolina on a Saturday morning, that was enough. When they finally left, Emma took Kira's hand. Will you come to dinner sometimes? Daddy makes really good spaghetti. I'd like that, Kira said. They walked out into the morning sunshine. Marcus and Emma toward the blue pickup truck. Kira toward her own vehicle. She was halfway there when Emma called out, Miss Kira! Don't forget. Kira turned. Emma was holding up Sergeant, the rabbit with one short ear and a sealed trident patch, the symbol of promises kept and faith earned. You're a hero now, Emma said, just like Daddy, just like Sergeant. That means you have to help other people find their brave. Kira felt tears threatening again, but this time they were different. Not fear or failure or grief. Something else. Something that felt like hope. I will, she called back. I promise. Emma smiled. Marcus lifted her into the truck. They drove away, gravel crunching under tires, disappearing down the road that led back to the house, where Kira had spent 3 weeks learning to be whole again. Admiral Blake appeared beside her. You ready for this, Vaughn? Training the next generation? Building something that'll outlast both of us? Kira looked at the Chi-Tac rifle case in her truck, at the tactical gear she'd worn to war and back, at her hands, the tremor still visible, but capable of impossible things. No, she said honestly, but I'm going to do it anyway. Blake laughed. That's the right answer. See you Monday morning, 0800, Fort Baxter Range Facility. We've got 12 recruits waiting, all of them told they aren't good enough, all of them needing someone to prove that wrong. He walked to his vehicle. Kira stood alone in the parking lot, processing everything that had happened, everything that was about to happen. Her phone buzzed, a text message, from a number she didn't recognize. She opened it. A photo. The Marlowe family, David, Jennifer, and Harper. They were home, safe. Harper was smiling, holding her stuffed fox, looking like a normal 9-year-old instead of a hostage. Below the photo, a message. Thank you for bringing our daughter home. We will never forget what you did. God bless you. Kira saved the photo, looked at it for a long moment, at Harper's smile, at the proof that freezing wasn't forever, that broken could be rebuilt, that promises could be kept. She got in her truck, started the engine, 6 months ago, she'd been a failed sniper heading for medical discharge. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a broken woman who couldn't pull a trigger. Yesterday, she'd been an operator saving a child's life from 1,100 yards away. Today, she was going home. To rest, to heal, to prepare for Monday morning when 12 women would show up looking for someone to teach them that they were enough. That fear didn't disqualify them. That broken could shoot straight. And Kira Vaughn, staff sergeant, survivor, sniper, would be there to show them how. She drove through Pinehurst's quiet streets, past the houses where people were just starting their weekends, past the park where children played, past all the ordinary moments that made up an ordinary life. But Kira knew now that there was nothing ordinary about any of it. Every moment of peace, every Saturday morning at the diner, every child playing in a park, every family safe in their home, all of it was precious beyond measure, worth fighting for, worth training for, worth keeping promises for. She pulled into her apartment complex. The building looked different somehow, less isolating. She'd lived here for 14 months, but it had never felt like home, just a place to hide. Not anymore. Kira carried her gear up the stairs. Neighbors she'd avoided for months nodded greetings. She nodded back. Small steps toward normal. Inside, she set the Chi-Tac case against the wall, unpacked her tactical vest, and there, nestled in the chest pocket where she'd carried him over her heart, was a small photo Emma had tucked in without Kira noticing. A crayon drawing, 2 stick figures, one tall labeled Miss Kira, one small labeled Me. Between them, a gray rabbit with a seal trident. Above it all, in Emma's careful handwriting, "Heroes keep promises." Kira's vision blurred. She pressed the drawing to her chest, felt the weight of a child's faith, the responsibility of living up to it, the profound gift of being believed in when you couldn't believe in yourself. Tomorrow, she'd return sergeant to Emma. Tomorrow, she'd start preparing curriculum for 12 women who needed what Marcus had given her. Tomorrow, she'd begin building something that would outlast them all. But tonight, she placed the drawing on her nightstand, where she could see it, a reminder of what was possible when someone believed in you. Kira changed out of her tactical gear for the first time in 4 days, showered, put on civilian clothes, looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd frozen in Somalia, wasn't the same one who'd sat in Carlo's diner with trembling hands 3 weeks ago. She was something new, something rebuilt, still broken in places. The tremor in her hands proved that, but functional, capable, ready. She lay down, closed her eyes, and for the first time in 14 months, when sleep came, there were no nightmares. Just a dream of a 7-year-old girl with a stuffed rabbit, waving goodbye, and a 9-year-old girl with a stuffed fox, finally home. Some promises are worth keeping. Some fears are worth facing. Some heroes just need someone to believe in them first.